All right, we're back with another great podcast. We just had a great one yesterday with Badlands.
Killed it. He
Chugs,
killed it.
Badlands Chugs. He killed it. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It's sometimes we got into some depth, but we got to have a good time too, and that's all part of it. We got today we'll have Coach Kevin Grimes, head basketball coach of Wayne Hills. He's been there, I think, a little bit 10 years, maybe a little longer. And
Somewhere around
has
there. He's been there a long time.
Yep, he's had a lot of success. He's been coach of the year. He's won numerous league championships. He's been to some deep rounds into the playoffs, and so we'll talk to him a little basketball action. Um, but tell you, it's really interesting. You got camps going on now from a college standpoint, and all over the country. And so, like recruiting, you get like a lot of kids that are in like recruiting panic mode because they're in their own camps and they're very, very worried about what's going on with their own situation. But it's
Right.
it's part of it. The coaches are in their own camps,
Right.
and even not
They
that
didn't forget
recruiting
about
stops.
you.
Not that
Right.
recruiting
Like it's
stops. They're still recruiting, but they are
always
spending a majority of it's probably pushed more to the recruiting personnel versus
correct.
them. So
Interns coming back on campus, that type of thing. You know what I mean? A lot of guys, Dave, I think right now, like, I mean, look, I know you're getting emails and calls. I'm getting emails and calls. Oh, I reached out to this coach and he didn't respond, or this guy like hasn't been talking to me. Guys, understand something right now. Like college coaches are in camp. They're trying to develop now what they have for the season. Like Coach said, that doesn't mean recruiting stops. It just, and I don't even want to say that it slows down, but let's just say it's not the number one priority right now of, say, the receivers coach at whatever school you're looking for. He's in camp trying to develop his guys so that
to
he
win
has a
games.
successful season. It's about winning games right now, man. Like the recruiting stuff, I get it. And for you guys that are freaking out about it, you need to go and now focus on your damn team, right? Like,
Yeah,
stop worrying about what's going to happen in the future and worry about, right now. You're trying to win games as a player because ultimately, at the end of the day, recruiting is based off of what you do. So you still now have to be in camp, working your ass off so that, you can put out those first 3 games of tape and
correct.
now you go from there. So,
Correct. That's a big part of it is that you have to get ready to dominate for the season because now, what are you going off of if you're reaching out anyway? Going off of last year's film, maybe some
correct.
7-on-7, maybe some camp clips, right? So
Yep.
you get as good as you can right now. So you have your scrimmage, even some of your scrimmage film. Um,
Absolutely.
you obviously your first few games and get that out there, but be as good as you can so you can put good film out there because that's right now is going to be the most important thing.
That's your
Um,
bread and butter, man. That's like what's gonna happen.
yeah, I think
That's
I think that's the big thing, and I think if we don't, when we focus outside of that, in season, yes, there's time to focus on recruiting, but spend
Sundays.
the majority of your time right now getting better for the season, knowing what you got to do so you could perform at the highest level that you can, and then that way the your film is really good, and that will be the first big step in your calling card. And
That's your resume,
if
right?
you've
Like
been
that's
under
your resume.
recruited, if you've been like if you're so like the guys who really are nervous, obviously are good kids that are going to be seniors. They don't have
2025s.
something
Yep.
or they feel like they're under recruited.
Yep.
This is the opportunity to get ready for the season, get and dominate so you could have your first few games really good clips so you can give yourself a possibility of a good situation. And yes, at the highest level, which everybody's always most concerned about, the majority, I didn't say all, but the majority of the schools probably have their guys at the Division One, meaning FBS level. But
Schools you see on TV,
those are
like
still
for the most part.
Right. Those are still commitments, right? Guys will change their mind. People will
Yep.
things will happen in roster disease. So that's why it's important to do a really good job so you can put film out there. And if you're already someone that's being recruited heavily, maybe just slightly outside of their top group, maybe your film puts you over the top. So that's a big,
Yep.
big thing I think that we need to really focus on as athletes. And I think that's the one, like this to me, this is the one time of year. Like obviously recruiting is all year round outside of the season, and it's all year round, period. But you don't want to make the mistake of worrying so much about recruiting while you're getting ready for your season
Yep.
and not and let that bog down your play. I think that
Right.
that's the that can happen, like
Absolutely. And that can mess with your brain, right? Like now your mental state, rather than focus on going to practice, dominating, doing whatever you can, you're so concerned with, I wonder if coach hit me back on X, or I wonder if this guy reached out to me, or guys, that's not where, like, be where your feet are, man. Like, this is the opportunity now. Hey, maybe you're going to be a senior,
why does
right?
everyone say that statement now? Why does everyone
What?
say be where their feet are? I hate that
I don't
statement.
know.
I mean, I've heard it a million times. College coaches say it all the time. Be where your feet are. Coaches will coach. They'll say they coach. They're trying to be where their feet are. I guess it means that like do the best you can right
Like
where
live
you
in
are.
the moment, like be in the moment for right now. Like you're a high school football
That's like a
player.
new
And,
saying. That's though a new saying.
well,
Though.
here's the other thing too, Dave. Like this is what I also look at too. Like, look, you only have one senior year as a football player. There's a lot of things, a lot of enjoyment, a lot of memories that are going to
Absolutely.
come with your senior year. Man, stop worrying about what you're going to do next year and focus on what you're doing now and enjoy being a senior, right? Like maybe that you're a captain. Like, you're getting all this like, you're getting loved up. Like you're literally about to enjoy probably one of the best years of your life that in memory wise. Remember, football is a sport that ends after high school for the most part for almost everybody. Okay, unless you're playing at the next level, which is a small percent that we know, all you have are your high school memories. College locker rooms are different than high school locker rooms, man. So enjoy what you're doing now. This is your last fall camp. Like, you're never going to get to take senior pictures in a football jersey again. Stop worrying about what school you're going to go to next year. What I will say though is, carve out some time, and I like to do it on, like, say, like a Sunday, right? Where you're off from the team, right? You're home, you're recovering, you're doing this. Carve out some time to work on your recruiting then. Reach out to coaches then. Do that stuff. Cut up your tape then, right? Like, you don't need to be engulfed with that Monday through Friday when you should be focusing on what do I need to do
And
to
it
get
doesn't
better and
hurt.
win games
You
on
can
Friday
take
nights.
you can take a half hour at night if you want to reach
Right.
out, but don't expect something to happen right away because of that process. And I think I saw coach here.
Plan also, like, hey, if you're really narrowed down to certain schools, right? Like maybe a top five, a top three. Listen, look at their game schedule.
No,
Maybe
there we
you
go.
can go to a game on a Saturday, right? Reach out to a coach, say, hey, I'd like to come see whatever, informal visits, get in there so you can see what it's like on game day, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, that's correct. 100%. That's really good.
Like,
All right,
take advantage of that, man. A coach will really love the fact that you want to do it and come and do that. My man,
What's happening?
Coach Grimes, baby. Hooper.
What's going on?
Looking good, buddy. Nice to see you. Coach
Nice.
Schuman, Kevin Grimes.
what's going on? You're on. You're on. We started. Obviously, we got rolling here. Coach, could you give everybody? We gave an intro, about your background as a coach and everything. But can you give everyone your background as a player, coach, and just so we everybody has an understanding of where you came from, how you got to this point in coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Played my high school hoops at DePaul Catholic.
We won't
Um,
hold that against you.
no, don't hold it against me. Then after really that, my playing career stopped. Right, so I wasn't your 4-star coming out of high school where I was being heavily recruited by colleges. I had some game. I actually got better after I left high school, but quickly found out that I wanted to coach. Started my coaching career at the good old Wayne PAL. And then really from there, just started doing some AAU stuff. Latched on as an assistant at Wayne Hills in 2012 under Paul Palick. After my first year of coaching high school hoops, interviewed at a couple places, got a couple jobs, but ultimately it ended up working out where I was able to get the head job at Wayne Hills. Spent 5 incredible years there as the head coach. Then from that point, I thought I wanted to coach in college. Started to talk to some colleges, almost made the move really to the assistant level at the Division One. But then I really feel like that, I was a high school basketball coach. It's what I wanted to do. I loved it. So then I went to Northern Valley Demers for 3 years. 3 incredible years with Greg Butler, who I think is one of the best athletic directors in the world. And then I had an
Always good
opportunity
to
to come
have
back
that.
home to
Always
Wayne
good to
Hills.
have one of those. Always good to have a
Yeah,
good
for
one of
sure.
those.
And then I had the opportunity to come back home to Wayne Hills. My wife is a tenure teacher there. That's my home. I built that program up, and here we are going into my 12th year as a head coach.
I knew it was over 10, bro. I knew it was over 10.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, what was it about high school coaching that you knew that you wanted to be a basketball coach at the high school level? Is when did you really kind of say to yourself, okay, this is something that I want to do? Because your playing career ended after high school. What was it about a high school basketball that made you want to go?
Once I started coaching, period, and it was at a younger level. It was doing the 7th and 8th grade and whatnot.
Right.
But then you just start getting attached to going to the games in town, right? And I think the first high school game I went to after my playing career was a Wayne Hills game, and I was like,
"Oh baby,
the atmosphere in a gym here is ridiculous, right? And I want to be the guy on the sideline to do that. So at that moment, I found out that this is where I want to be. I want to coach in high school. And then after doing it for a couple of years and having aspirations to potentially coach in college, I love the communication with the high school kid, right? Like there's so many things that I think I can do from an influential standpoint for them outside of the X's and O's, specifically at their age, that just I'm totally drawn to. So I had my feelers out there. I thought I was going to make the leap, but I resonate really well with the high school kid, and I want to make sure they leave our building better men than they are when they walk in outside of the player. And since that, it's just been it's been my passion. It's been what I love, and I feel like I still feel like I've done it 10 years ago, and I'm on the sideline. I'm not. It's just an unbelievable feeling on game night, practice. It's who I am. It's in my blood.
Basketball is, compared to like football, there's 5 guys that got to be in sync on the court, right? Versus 11 and multiple different groups at a time, and it becomes really, really tactical each way up the court every single time. What are some of the things that you really work to like instill in your basketball players that have really helped you to succeed? You've had a lot of success as a coach. What is it you've done there to really build Wayne Hills into a really respected basketball program? Because I think Wayne Hills used to be like kind of sometimes good, sometimes
It was a
not.
football school. It was a
Right,
football school, and
exactly.
then when I came
that's a
in,
great way to put it. Great way to put it.
and
Obviously,
listen,
look, and you had a legend there, right? Like a lot of guys, Chris Olsen, like, guy dominated for so many years, Wayne Hills football, not even talking about his sons just in general, right? But like just development of a program. You talked Wayne Hills, it was football. That's what you talked about. That's what they were known for, right? So now you come in as a basketball guy, like go ahead and continue that process of how you kind of got it to where it is now.
I wanted to make it a basketball school. You know what I mean? Selfishly, I wanted Wayne Hills to be known as a basketball school. And I think it started with really good communication with, at the time, maybe Wayne Demikoff and I came in together. So it was really just how can we utilize, the athletes that we have in this school and make sure that we can post these powerhouses. Right. So it started with really good communication. I am really big on a couple different pillars, trust being one of them. I want my group to be the hardest working group in the state. I want us to be the closest group in the state. And I want to make sure our communication and our accountability is top notch. And I think if we have those 4 pillars and we're all pulling by the same rope, I think that's why we had the success that we did. Now I say that, and I also coach some really good freaking players at Wayne Hills.
Helps to
You
have
know,
that, buddy. Helps to have a
right,
couple of
right.
those
Like,
every now and then.
let's not be naive. I mean, I had the chance to coach Joey Belli, who was, you know, one of the best point guards in Northern New Jersey for a 2-year span. So that helps. But for me, it's like, listen, if we're going to turn this into a basketball school and make Wayne Hills be known for that, then we're going to have to do this the right way, and we're all going to have to be on the same page. So, and it worked out.
In public school, I'm curious because you really turned it into a basketball school. Maybe the football program is not at the same level that you guys are now. So from that standpoint, but basketball, because of AAU and obviously there's obviously youth programs within your town, and Wayne does a great job of really with their youth sports. How like how do you kind of balance all that? Because I know, obviously, I'm sure your very best players probably play some level of AAU. How do you balance all that kind of stuff and keep the team, moving forward?
Well, it's actually a really good question. So, you know, to circle back for a second, the other part of building a program is making sure that the hours that I have are spent at the Wayne PAL and the Boys and Girls Club. So these kids are walking through the door; they already know who I am. We've already started peeling away at a relationship. It's
Huge
huge,
part of it.
huge,
Huge part of it,
huge.
right? Like
So I mean,
anytime you're trying to turn something or do something, especially out of public school, where you can't go, like, private, you can go pick your players.
right.
Public, you have to work with that youth program, whether it's football, basketball. That's your feeder. Those are the
You got to keep
kids
them
you're
home.
going. Right. And listen, you're in a town that has some schools that, look, you can go to DePaul. You could go to Passaic County Tech, right? Like pseudo private schools that, you got to keep them and say, hey, man, it's a better option for you to come here to Wayne Hills. And part of
Yeah,
that is, like you said, being in that youth program building so that, like you said, they know you when they already
for
come
sure.
up. They're comfortable. Mom and dad know Kevin Grimes. Oh, he comes to all our practices on Tuesday nights. Like, that's
Mhm.
important.
For sure, for sure. And then to the AAU question, part of it is the world of basketball. It's this is where good players are going to get their exposure, right? They're going to get their exposure playing with their club teams on the circuit at their live events. So it's a battle, right? It's a battle to make sure that they're partaking in our off-season programs, but there's a level of communication and compassion that you have to feel for them because they're trying to do everything in their power to get to the next level, and you have to have a little yin and yang, right? You're going to have to let
Yes.
them kind of go and do some things at sometimes, and it's
Yes.
not always the easiest thing because our numbers go down in the summer for sure, and we're trying to obviously
Correct.
build to the ultimate goal, but I want my players to know that I'm in support of what they're doing in the off season with the AAU stuff. And then in hope that they reciprocate that back when it comes time when we really got to put our foot in the gas and be certain places during the off season. So, you know, that it's not easy, but I think if you have a level of open communication, then it works.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And
a
it's
it's
like
a
Dave, we talk about it all the time, right? Like high school coaches and Kev, we kind of like compare like the spring for football with like 7-on-7 club teams, right?
Right.
Like a lot of the high school coaches, I feel like it has a negative context with most of them, like, oh, these guys are playing 7-on-7. It doesn't do
Right.
that, right? Whereas with basketball, it's kind of the same thing when it comes to AAU. But like you said, with that open communication, now, all right, hey, maybe play for this club or maybe it's this club, but like you have a relationship basically with those club teams and everybody's on the same page and kind of understands, same with us, Dave, like with our 7-on-7, right? Like certain coaches where we get when the kids come to us from their high school, like they're excited that these kids are doing something else and working out, in the springtime or, with somebody that understands football in a 7-on-7 world, kind of like the AAU. So I think it really kind of goes hand in hand. And like you said, Dave, when like those guys are supportive, right? Like those head coaches, they're posting their players 7-on-7 stuff. And then coming back to it, if everybody's on the same page, then you're kind of like working in a perfect world, right? Did we lose
well,
coach?
I'm curious. I'm curious, Coach, if um the youth program, so like that's mostly rec, right? Do you get players from the rec that actually come and play with you, or are these kids that are also kind of they play rec but they also are playing AU like that because obviously more and more, I see all these kids are playing some level of club in basketball, right? My son plays on an AU team at 9 years old already. So
Yeah.
even though he plays rec too. So he plays both. But like the rec for them is like have a great time with their friends, which
Mhm.
maybe like you know what I mean, maybe the kids that they're maybe going to the same school, and then the AU is like kids from different towns, right? That are all playing together on a higher level team. For the kids that are looking, I'm just curious. Do you still get rec kids that can come up and compete with your kids that are AU kids?
For sure. So, I mean, for the
Okay.
most part, when we get our kids coming in and we get to that freshman year of tryouts, I would say half of our kids are rec kids. And then
Awesome.
the other half are your travel kids, right?
Right.
And then you
Yep.
take those travel kids, and there's probably half of those. So you're talking probably like 20% of the kids in the gym have exposure to AAU, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's a healthy mix. And I've seen over my 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it's been, I've seen some really nice success stories about the rec kid who gets on the freshman team as 11 and 12 and then finds himself going through the program for 4 years and then being instrumental and playing by the time he's a senior. It's really freaking cool. And listen, I also it's crazy. I mean, sometimes I think I spend too much time down at the Wayne PAL, but I even encourage the rec kids. I encourage the rec kids, and I go down to the rec stuff because you never know what you're going to find. And if you love the game,
Right.
you got to keep. It's funny. My biggest gripe with the Wayne PAL, and I hope eventually none of them see this, and I've articulated this with them too, is they play too many freaking games, right? So like these teams at fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, they're playing 85 games and they're not practicing. So
Jesus
they get
Christ.
to us and we're in tryouts, and it's like, you got to learn how to make a left-handed layup going off the right foot. Like,
Yeah,
you got to
buddy.
learn how to use both hands. It's like, but they're
Skills.
not exposed to that because they're playing 90
Playing
freaking
games,
games.
games, 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 games,
It's
games. And
insane.
that's where football is totally different, right? Because you practice for football way more than you play games, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the skill aspect of it, I
But
mean,
with
look,
flag, that's changing.
that's what I was
That
gonna
is
get to
one thing
right
that's
now.
changing because
Like
of flag.
so, and that's what I was gonna get to, Dave, is
Yeah.
like I look at like in Brick where I'm at, right? Like there's two monster feeder programs. You have a tackle feeder, and then you have a huge flag feeder program. So like you're talking about a freshman class coming in for tryouts where you got rec kids, AAU kids. Now, my freshman class coming in, I have flag kids and I have tackle kids, right? So that mix now becomes something you have to look at, and then just skill development in general, right? Like you're talking like guys doing layups, shooting for like just how about like, hey man, like dribbling here, or can you do this? And it's like, well, we just play games, fast break and go. It's like, where are those skills that, and look, we know how it is. The youth now, like that bores them, right? Like they don't want to sit at a clinic and dribble here and come around this and do that. Like they want to play games, but ultimately, if you want to get developed and do the right things, like you need that skill practice.
Yeah.
Basketball is a mix in that too, which is a little
Hell yeah.
different. Is a little. I think flag football maybe is changing football from that standpoint a little bit, but I think basketball is a mix because you do have to play games because the situations and the pace are different from game to game, like team to team. But
Of
obviously,
course.
you also have to. You can't neglect skill development because that becomes an issue. You won't be able to do certain things in the games, and one of the things I've noticed is that getting kids to play as many different positions as they can to get different skill sets, I think, is a big deal. And I'm sure in most cases, mom and dad want them to play one position or another, and then you get in a situation where they're all trying to play the same position. So the one good thing about basketball, I think, is this though. Because there's less people on the court, that means that there's more opportunity for you at the public school to get more good players. Whereas, like, it's kind of gone the opposite way in football in the sense that the parochial schools really, really dominate all the players because there's so many more spots that are needed. And in basketball, hey, like 5 guys are on a court at a time. If you're all going to one place, you're going to get cut. Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
that's the bottom line. You're going to get cut. So making good decisions from that standpoint, I think, is really important. What are the things that you think players need to really develop from a skill set standpoint that can help them really be a good player? What are some of the skills that are important?
I mean, first and foremost, everything I look at always goes on the defensive side of the ball. So when I'm talking to college coaches, they're obviously recruiting you and looking at you because you have a specific skill set. You can shoot it, you can handle it, you're unselfish, you're an incredible athlete. But then the question always comes here. It's, can they guard at the next level? Can they
Yes.
defend at the next level? So we got to teach these kids how to move laterally. You got to teach them how to move their feet. You got to teach them how to position their bodies and use their upper and lower bodies to really learn how to defend at a high level. So for me, I mean, I have tons of kids who have aspirations to play at the next level, and some of them are great shooters, great ball handlers. And the question always comes, well, coach, how am I going to be able to play in college? You're not going anywhere unless you can defend. And that's at any level. It's not just at the Division I scholarship level.
Awesome.
I talk to D3 coaches all the time, and they always say, like, man, he shoots the piss out of it, and he can probably score 15 a night in the NJAC, but he can't guard. Like, he can't guard. So that is the number one skill set that a high school basketball player needs to learn, develop, have confidence in, and spend time in if you want to do it at the next level.
Yeah, I think
Dave,
that's
how many times do I tell you that, right? Like defense, man. Like just focus, like even for your young guy who's a hell of an athlete, Kev. Like Dave's kid is athletic as hell, and he loves basketball. He's played on these AAU teams now where they've bumped him like position wise. He's pretty
Yeah.
much played like all five stuff. He's long as hell at a young age. But I always try to tell Dave like defense is where like the game changes. Like if you can play defense, dude, like the other stuff, like a coach is going to look at it and be like, yo, if he can stop that guy, I'll work the offensive stuff. I can teach all that other stuff, right? And a lot of it I tell him is like, dude, it's just attitude, hustle, like all of that stuff, like defensively can get you up to the next level. And it's so awesome to hear you say that, dude. Like, you know, like shit, I couldn't play basketball, I couldn't do shit, but I could cover somebody, I could guard somebody and stay in front because the lateral movement, that's like, you know, where I made my money. Like that's what it was. And those are
you know
things
what
you
the
can
funny part
develop.
is? You get questions all the time, right? Whether it's basketball, football, baseball. What's the question we always get as coaches? It's, coach, how can I play more? What can I do to get on the floor more? It's like, for me, it's like defend. Like if I can put you in the game for a 3-minute stint or a 2-minute stint and you can guard and rebound, you can play, especially in high school. You can play. You don't have to go score 6 points in a 2-minute span. Just go guard somebody.
no doubt about it. No,
It's
that's
awesome. Dennis Rodman, baby.
Well, Derek, you might be alone for 1 second because I think I'm my thing just kicked me.
Oh, you're a little frozen. You look frozen.
No, I'm not frozen. I'm like I don't
You're
see
frozen on my screen.
I don't see my visual.
Oh, it's good. You look all right, Duff. All right, here I am. Rock and roll. Listen, guys, the stuff we're talking about, right? And obviously, we're having some technical difficulties, but understand something. It's all the same kind of stuff that we're talking about, whether you're playing football, whether you're playing basketball, right? Like, Coach,
Yeah,
I'm back. He's back. He's back.
The visual went out. I don't know what happened there.
Hang on. Give me a, let me
it looked
see.
like, what's that?
Oh, no, it's all good. What? We lost Coach. His Wi-Fi just dropped, but
Yeah,
we're
no,
good.
I think that so defense. I
How
mean,
cool is that, Dave? Like, how cool is that to hear that, right? Like,
that's what I tell even like I tell even the young kids I coached. I said we all love offense and we love scoring
everybody
points.
loves offense,
But
dude.
if you guys are fierce on defense, if they score 0, you will win the game. Okay, you will win the game if they score 0. And if you keep in basketball, you keep the points low, you will win the game. So it's our comments are funny today. You see our comments?
Oh, we got good stuff.
Oh,
Trump.
God.
Okay, we got Trump
Oh,
stuff.
Trump. Okay. No politics, bro.
Talking about commies. Holy hell. Guys, these
Our
are funny.
comments are crazy.
You know what, Dave? You know what I will like say, and it all crosses over, right? Like football, basketball, right? Like, you know, here you have a high school coach talking about, you know, how, like guys trying to get to that next level. And the difference, right, is can you guard someone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like That's the difference. And to me, like I can teach you, hey, you got to stay in front of the guy, or, I can teach you those defensive skills, but like there has to be a want and a passion to do that stuff. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you might not be the guy that's getting mentioned in whatever because you only had, 6 points. But if you went out there and held their best player to under 10 points, right? And then you had 10 rebounds and 4 steals or whatever. Like, dude, it's like an offensive lineman in football. If you don't give up a sack, dude, great day, right? Or, you got a couple pancakes, great day. But nobody talks about how good you did. It's the same thing with hoops, Only, now you're like, I don't know. To me, it would just be like, I would take more pride in holding their best player to under 10 points than I would dropping 26.
Right. Well, and that's the difference. There are different roles, obviously, on the hoops team. Different players. There are guys that are more defensive guys. There are more guys that are going to be
Right.
scoring.
Like I
But
said, like
but
Dennis
the,
Rodman, dude.
you play
Like,
both sides of the one thing about basketball is you play both sides of the ball the whole game. So
and you're
you're playing
going.
you're a two-way player the
Right.
whole game. So there's no
I
such
love it, like, and you see different stuff like at the end of the game, you know what I mean? When guys are taking timeouts and doing this, and it's like, all right, you get in because we're on defense. And then it's like, all right, there's a stoppage of play. All right, get out. Let me put in a scorer, right? Like you see some of that at the end of a
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for the most part, basketball, like, dude, you better be able to play both, right? Like, the rarity was, the 96 Bulls where Dennis Rodman, like, never scored points. He just got rebounds and steals and played defense, right? Like, why do you think Jordan brought him in? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, little things like that. I love also that he talked about, like, he gave you the whole scope of rec and AAU, right? Like, he gave you how each of those matter, right? And we kind of talk about it all the time. Like, is he a rec kid? Is he a travel kid, right? Because the fact that he can tell you you can play rec, still come to high school, and contribute on the team as you progress and continue to get better, right?
Well, yeah, obviously it depends on the level of athlete and what they end up growing into. But yeah, that is to me the thing that I think is interesting that rec players can contribute. I wonder if they contribute at the parochial level, but
Well, I
I would
wonder if they get taken at the parochial level.
yeah, they probably don't. But my guess is public school that's pretty cool that like you have that opportunities. You can play rec. You can play like the travel ball and then AU, obviously, which is like a little higher level. AU's varies all levels, but
100%.
but yeah, I think that's a big thing, and I think that I was curious about that because that's where parents are always panicking, like, oh, my kid only plays rec, is he going to be able to play in high school? The answer is you can. It really depends. Like if you're going to go to a parochial school, it's probably harder,
Right.
much harder. But if you go to a public school, I think there is an opportunity because you probably have that situation there, and
And
because it
obviously, you're talking about a town like Wayne, where, like you said, like youth sports matter in Wayne, right? Like
sports.
like Middletown, youth sports matter. I would compare the towns actually.
Yeah, yeah, they're
I think
very
they're pretty
comparable.
much they're
Very
very much
comparable.
alike, right? But you know, they also have like there's options within Wayne itself. Like I said, like you have two monster high schools: Wayne Hills, Wayne Valley, Publix. Then you have Passaic County Tech, private. You can go or whatever. DePaul, private. Go where you know what I mean? Like the town itself, and then like you said, like you have Wayne PAL, which is more like your rec. I'm sure you have AAU teams that are based out of Wayne itself, right?
Right.
Like facilities wise, you're never worrying about like I'm gonna get a gym, but just knowing also, I mean, the size of the town also factors into.
Yeah, I mean, they have two high schools, so that's. But you're right. Yeah, the size of the town does matter. I don't know if a town like Saddlebrook has AAU.
No, I think that would be tough. You know what I
They
mean?
probably would just have travel. My guess is like some form
Correct.
of
Or
prop.
like maybe you get like a group that was like, you know what I mean? Like
Good.
this is
Oh,
like
right.
a basketball
These
group,
kids are
right?
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Like, and that's why, group one, group twos, it's hard, dude, because you go through those waves of like, hey, I have a really good football. Usually when you have a good football team, all the other sports are pretty damn good too. Hate to say it, guys, but like we talk about all the
In
time.
a small school, you're talking about, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like your group ones, right?
Because you're
Like,
using each kid in a different sport, the same, or at least in two sports, usually
correct. And like
minimum.
you talk about it, like maybe he's the quarterback in one, but he's like the third best basketball player, but he's still playing basketball.
Exactly, and he's still contributing. He's probably an athlete. So
100%. When you get to the
you
group one
probably
stuff,
at
like
small schools, you probably can win a lot of games as long as you have like one guy that can really score. You probably can win. You win a lot of games with athletes. My guess.
that's what I was gonna say. Like if you have
Rebound and defense.
right, like let's say you have like I don't know, say you have like three guys that are pretty athletic, or like two guys that are pretty athletic, another guy that's kind of athletic, and then like a true one sport basketball guy. You could probably win a lot of games, right? And
You
then
probably
maybe you
can.
have just a dude that's like 6'6", and
If
he's
you
just
have
a
a guy
big
that's
guy.
6'6" out of Group One, you're winning 20 games.
Easily.
You're definitely winning 20 games because
My
I
thing was
saw
like, hey, if we're at a group, like if we're a group one
Stroudsburg
and we
was
got a
always
guy that
middle of
can,
the road, and then they had the brothers. They were one was 6'6", one was 6'8", and they won like 28. I don't know.
yeah,
They might have lost.
it was like
They lost in the
like I
state
said, like we always said, like if we
championship.
have somebody that's on our team that can dunk, like we're already ahead of the game. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
ready,
But
like we're good to go.
but Wayne Hills is different because you're playing Hackensack. You're playing you're playing bigger schools, so they're all going
Bigger
to have
schools,
athletes.
definitely.
And then occasionally you have a place like Mawa when they had Ken Kaluko, who was like would shoot the lights out, and they won the jamboree in Bergen County, and even though they were
Some of
group
the
two.
dudes that Kevin played with at DePaul, holy shit, dude! Like they had like
Did you play with Chaz?
Chaz was
Or older than
maybe
him?
a freshman. Chaz might have been a
Chaz
freshman
younger.
when Kevin was a senior. But
Got it.
Kevin's team, dude, he had, I believe his last name was Schaefer. I think he ended up going to Princeton. And then they
Okay.
had a monster. I want to say close to 7 foot kid Kelly. I think he was 6'10" from West Milford. Dude, like here I am a freshman starting. I walk on the court and that's the dude taking the tip. I'm like, hello, sir. How are you? Like, let me tie your shorts. Like, okay, buddy. Right. And then the kid Schaefer was just a dog, dude. Like, and you could tell like when he was playing us, he was like, all right, whatever. But if you pissed him off, which of course I did because that's what I was that guy, right? And now all of a sudden he's like, all right, dude, really? Boom, banging threes like Steph Curry all over the place. He just flipped that switch. But I'll tell you the one thing: for as much as he scored, where he really turned it on, and I was like, damn, this guy's good. Defensively, dude. Like guys, you wouldn't even get the ball across half court, and he'd be there, bang, steal, 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 steal.
Yeah,
So
that's
I mean, listen, it's basketball, like we've talked about a ton of times, is difficult because there's only five guys on the court, right? And I guess uh, to me, if I was coaching basketball, I feel like the hardest part would be like the role player stuff or substitutions, like knowing when and when not to put guys in and all that kind of stuff. And you've had a little experience coaching that. Is that difficult in terms of like getting guys in at the right time and all that other kind of stuff? You kind of got to manage like, hey, if a guy gets 2 fouls early, right? Like now we got to do something else. Is that more difficult than you would say? Or
at youth, in basketball than
yeah,
football, you mean, versus
yeah,
football?
yeah.
I thought basketball was pretty easy, to be honest.
Okay.
From a rotation, football I think is hard.
I would probably overthink it.
Football is harder in the sense that
Oh yeah, you just forget.
yeah, I mean, it depends on what kids you have in basketball. Obviously, if you're not as good as the other team, it can be very difficult. But and same thing in football. But in football, you got to manage the personnel. So that's a big deal. And it depends on how much personnel you have. It depends, like if
Right,
you're a basketball team and you have 10 kids that are good, you got to figure out a rotational system. If
right.
you're at a football team and you have a lot of kids that are good, you got to figure out a rotational system. But
Yep.
football just has more pieces. Like you have special teams. You have, I think that's harder. I think basketball is a lot more tactical, and
Right.
football is a little more strategic. Probably strategic and tactical. Basketball is strategic, but tactical is a big deal. Like tactics, like if Steph Curry, like in the Olympics, he becomes hot, like you're like, hey man, we got to get him the ball. That's tactical, right? Because
Right.
basically in the heat of the game, you might have had a plan when saying, okay, we're gonna try and get LeBron the ball and maybe get Curry
Right.
on outlets and
Right.
Durant the ball, and then all of a sudden Curry starts freaking draining. You're like, just get this guy the ball, which I think is it happens in both sports too, right? Because you get a
Right.
running back, you just feed
Yeah,
him.
it's like,
But
oh, this guy's hot, or hey, like we're throwing to this, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we're throwing to, Jefferson, like, he's getting 5 targets on the first,
yeah,
7 plays.
more from film, I think, on football.
That was a question I wanted to ask him too.
Better, yeah, more likely,
And
like
unfortunately, his Wi-Fi dropped, so that kind of
what your
sucks. But
plan should do.
he's trying.
But I think basketball, we'll get up out of here. But with basketball, I think you do get a situation where film is important, but it's more purely like what their personnel is. Football's personnel, obviously, but if a team plays you a certain way and it's really challenging to overcome that, it's probably harder to overcome than basketball. I mean, basketball, how many plays does a team have, right? How many defenses do they really have? Football, they may only run a team may run a lot on defense. They may run very little. Football on offense, they may be very simple. They may be very complex, So that part's a little bit more difficult. But let's go about it. And we lost him, so we'll just we'll
Yeah, technical difficulties.
chalk it up. But we got 40 minutes in anyway. So in the old days, that would have been a long podcast. All right. We'll see you guys
Yeah,
next. Yeah.